The meeting room fell silent as Admiral William Porter placed the data chip on the table. His weathered face showed the strain of his discovery. 20 high-ranking officials of the United Earth government stared at the holographic evidence now, floating above them. "This is the proof," Porter said, his voice steady despite his anger. "For the past 30 years, the Galactic Confederation has been hiding our technological advances from us." President Elaine Mason studied the documents with narrowed eyes. After 2 centuries of humanity's membership in the Confederation, this betrayal cut deep. The files showed how alien officials had purposely slowed down human progress, afraid of Earth's growing capabilities. "They took our ship designs," continued Porter, pointing to the spinning blueprints, "changed them to be less effective and told us the original designs wouldn't work, all while praising us to our faces about being valuable members of the Confederation." Mason Tao stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the gleaming towers of New Washington stretched toward the sky, a testament to human persistence. She remembered how hard they had worked to prove themselves worthy of joining the galactic community. "How many other human innovations have they suppressed?" asked Defense Minister Grace Howard, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. "Too many to count," Porter replied. "Medical treatments that could have saved millions of our people. Weapons that could have protected our colonies during the Centauri conflict." Mason turned back to face her cabinet. "And all this time we thought we weren't good enough, that we needed to try harder to match their standards." The room grew quiet again as everyone processed the betrayal. For 200 years, humans had fought in Confederation wars, provided doctors for their hospitals, and offered solutions to their problems. Yet behind closed doors, the alien races saw humans as dangerous children who needed to be controlled. "Madam President," said Foreign Secretary Daniel Wright, "what do you suggest we do? File a formal complaint?" Mason smiled, but there was no humor in it. "No. We've filed complaints for decades. They make promises, nothing changes, and we keep playing by their rules." She looked at each person in the room. "I think it's time to stop playing." 3 days later, President Mason stood before the United Earth Parliament. Representatives from every human colony world joined through holographic links. The session was being broadcast to all human settlements and, more importantly, across the entire Confederation. "For 2 centuries," Mason began, her voice strong and clear, "humanity has been a loyal member of the Galactic Confederation. We have fought in their wars, healed their sick, and offered our friendship to every species. Today I reveal to you how they repaid that loyalty." The evidence flashed on screens throughout the galaxy. Humans everywhere watched in growing anger as they learned how their achievements had been stolen, altered, or buried by the very allies they had trusted. "Today," continued Mason, "by unanimous vote of the United Earth government, I announce humanity's immediate withdrawal from the Galactic Confederation." Across 27 worlds, diplomats and military personnel began packing up embassies and bases. Human ships started their journeys home. The message was simple: humanity was done. On Confederation Central, the massive space station that served as the heart of galactic government, alien officials scrambled in panic. The Zarathi ambassador, Kelvor, rushed to the human embassy where workers were already removing equipment. "This is madness," he said to the human ambassador, Helen Rodriguez. "You cannot simply leave the Confederation." Rodriguez looked up from her packing. "Watch us. There are procedures, protocols." Kelvor's blue skin darkened with stress. "The economic impact alone will— should have thought about that before spending 2 centuries treating us like useful pets," Rodriguez interrupted, sealing a crate of diplomatic documents. "Your economy is no longer our concern." "President Mason must reconsider," Kelvor pleaded. "The Council is willing to discuss reforms." "Too late," Rodriguez said simply. "We're done talking." At Proxima Station, the largest human military base outside Earth's solar system, Commander Ryan Patel oversaw the evacuation with military precision. Human technicians carefully removed advanced defense systems they had installed over the years. The station's Trilaxian administrator, Ziv, watched with growing alarm. "You're taking the shield generators?" he asked, his voice rising in pitch. "They're human technology," Patel replied without looking up from his checklist. Developed by us, paid for by us. But without them, the station is vulnerable to raiders. Ziv's forearms gestured wildly. Who will protect us? Patel finally looked up, his expression neutral. That sounds like a Confederation problem now. You can't just leave us defenseless. Interesting, Patel said, checking another item off his list. That's exactly what you did to our colony on Tau Ceti when they asked for help during the pirate raids last year. You said they were too far from strategic interest to warrant protection. That was different, Ziv protested. Not to the families. Who died? Patel handed the checklist to his lieutenant. We'll be gone in 3 hours. I suggest you contact Confederation Security for replacement systems. Back on Earth, President Mason met with the emergency response team, handling the massive return of human citizens from across the galaxy. The logistics were enormous but proceeding smoothly. Humans had always been good at adapting quickly. Madam President, said Operations Director Ben Miller, we've received 17 urgent requests for meetings from Confederation representatives. Decline them all, Mason replied, studying the holographic map showing the progress of the human exodus. We have nothing left to discuss. They're offering concessions. Big ones. Mason looked up. Like what? Leadership positions on the Council. Access to restricted technologies. Exclusive trade rights in the Orion sector. Everything we should have had from the beginning, Mason said, shaking her head. Tell them we're not interested in negotiating better terms. We're not looking for a better deal within their system. We're leaving their system entirely. As the last human ships prepared to depart Confederation space, a final message was broadcast from Earth to all galactic channels. President Mason stood alone at her podium, her expression resolute. To all species of the Galactic Confederation, for 2 centuries you valued our strength when it served your purposes, but feared it when it grew too great. You accepted our help, but denied us equal standing. You took our innovations while sabotaging our progress. She paused, her gaze steady into the camera. Today we walk away. We leave you to your Confederation, your rules, and your fears. Humanity will forge its own path among the stars. We came to you as partners, but were treated as tools. Remember this moment. Remember that it was your choice, not ours, that led us here. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, the lights of human settlements went dark as ships departed. The age of humanity in the Confederation was over, and the galaxy would soon discover exactly what they had lost. 3 months after humanity's exit from the Galactic Confederation, the effects were becoming impossible to ignore. On the busy trading world of Mercantis Prime, shop owners closed their doors early. The streets that once bustled with commerce now emptied before nightfall. Third attack this week, muttered Jorex, a Venteran merchant, as he pulled down his security shutters. Before the humans left, we never worried about pirates. His neighbor, a spice seller from the Dravian cluster, nodded sadly. The human patrols kept the routes safe. Now, my last shipment never arrived, stolen somewhere near the Orion belt. Across the galaxy, similar conversations played out on countless worlds. The Orion trade routes, once the safest shipping lanes thanks to human military patrols, now saw piracy increase by over 400%. Ships disappeared daily, their cargoes stolen, crews either killed or abandoned on lifeless moons. On Velox Prime, the situation was even more dire. A viral outbreak that began in the southern continent had spread rapidly across the planet. Dr. Natalia Valenz, one of the few human doctors who had chosen to stay behind, worked tirelessly in the main hospital of Velox City. We need more of the TR7 vaccine, she told the hospital director, her face lined with exhaustion. Without it, this virus will kill millions. We've requested help from all Confederation medical stations, the director replied, his scaled skin pale with worry. None have the vaccine or the ability to make it. Because it was a human development, Valenz said sharply. And when we offered to teach your scientists how to manufacture it last year, they refused, saying your traditional methods were superior. The director looked away, unable to meet her eyes. That was a mistake that will cost lives. Valenz returned to her patients, knowing there was little she could do without proper supplies. On Confederation Central, the massive space station that served as the heart of galactic government, the High Council gathered for an emergency session. The chamber, designed to hold representatives from hundreds of species, now had many empty seats. Not just the human ones, but also those of several smaller races who had followed Earth's example and withdrawn from the Confederation. Chancellor Genta of the Medusan Collective called the meeting to order, her normally melodious voice tight with strain. "We face an unprecedented crisis," she began. "The withdrawal of humanity has created instabilities throughout Confederation space. I have reports from every sector, and none are positive." She brought up a holographic display showing trade route, disruptions, security breaches, and medical emergencies across dozens of worlds. "The humans provided 40% of our patrol fleets along major trade routes," continued Genta. "They staffed 35% of our advanced medical facilities. Their engineers maintained crucial infrastructure on over 50 worlds." A Taurian representative interrupted, his massive form rising from his seat. "Let us not forget, Chancellor, that these were duties the humans agreed to take on. Their departure is nothing short of abandonment of responsibility." From the observer section, a single human figure stood. Dr. Susan Rivera had remained as Earth's sole representative, not as a diplomat, but as a witness. The Chancellor acknowledged her with a nod. "With respect," Rivera said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber. "Humanity took on those duties because you convinced us they were our proper role in the Confederation. Humans are natural protectors, you told us. Humans have a gift for medicine, you said, all while ensuring we never rose too high in your command structures, never gained too much influence in your councils." The Taurian snorted. "Your species is barely 2,000 years into space travel. The Taurian Empire has sailed the stars for 20 millennia. Did you expect equal standing so quickly?" "We expected honesty," Rivera replied calmly. "Instead, we discovered systematic suppression of our advancements. You treated humanity like children while simultaneously exploiting our strengths. Did you expect us to endure that forever?" Before the debate could grow heated, alarms blared. Throughout the station, a communications officer rushed into the chamber, her expression panicked. "Chancellor, we've lost contact with the Proxima border fleet. All 17 ships gone at once." The room erupted in chaos. The Proxima border had been stable for decades, mainly because human fleets had kept it that way. With their departure, the Confederation had scrambled to replace them with ships from other species, but the replacements lacked experience in the sector. "Could it be equipment failure?" asked Genta, trying to maintain calm. 17 ships. Don't all fail at once, the officer replied. "And we're picking up unusual energy readings consistent with Krell weaponry." The chamber fell silent at the mention of the Krell. The aggressive empire had been the Confederation's primary enemy for centuries, kept at bay largely by the feared human combat fleets. Everyone in the room knew what Krell ships in Proxima sector meant. The invasion they had dreaded had begun. Meanwhile, at the edge of what was once Confederation space, Captain Frank Bennett commanded the last human diplomatic vessel leaving the region. The sleek ship, the UES Horizon, had been delayed by final protocol requirements. Bennett was eager to get home to Earth, tired of the endless bureaucracy that had plagued human Confederation relations. "Captain," his communications officer called. "Out. We're receiving multiple distress signals. At least 20 Confederation outposts reporting attacks." Bennett walked to the communications station, looking at the flood of incoming pleas for help. For a moment, old instincts nearly took over. The human desire to protect, to fight for those in danger. Then he remembered the countless times human colonies had sent similar distress calls, only to be told by the Confederation that they were assessing the situation or considering appropriate responses. "Standard protocol, Lieutenant," Bennett said quietly. "Forward all distress calls to the nearest Confederation authority with our regrets that, as per our withdrawal agreement, this is no longer a human concern." "Sir?" The lieutenant looked surprised. "Some of these outposts have civilians, families." Bennett met his gaze steadily. "And when the Weber colony was under attack last year with 10,000 human families, the Confederation deemed it not strategically significant enough to send help. We lost 8,000 people, He turned away. Forward the calls. Set course for Earth. As the horizon jumped to faster than light speed, leaving Confederation space behind, Bennett stood at the viewport watching the stars blur. Part of him felt guilt at leaving innocents in danger, but a larger part felt a grim satisfaction. For too long humanity had been the Confederation's shield, their peacekeepers, their medical corps, all while being treated as lesser partners. Now the galaxy would learn what happened when that shield walked away. He had a feeling the lesson would be harsh. Back on Confederation Central, as reports of attacks flooded in from multiple sectors, Chancellor Genta looked at the empty human seats in the chamber. For the first time in her long political career, she felt something close to fear. "We never realized," she whispered to her aide, "how much we had come to depend on them." 6 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy burned. The Krell Empire, long contained by human military might, had launched their invasion with perfect timing. Without humanity's tactical brilliance and fierce determination on the front lines, Confederation forces crumbled like dry leaves. 7 star systems fell in the first month alone. By the 3rd month, that number had tripled. The Krell moved with ruthless efficiency, always seeming to know exactly where Confederation defenses were weakest. On the bridge of the massive Krell warship Desolation, War Commander Vrex watched the battle unfold on the viewscreen. His forces surrounded the Taurian colony of Belis-4, the planet's meager defenses already failing. "Their shield grid is collapsing," reported his tactical officer. "Estimate total failure in 6 minutes." Vrex's scaled lips pulled back in what passed for a smile among his species. The Taurians always boasted of their superior technology, yet they fall even faster than the others. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Krell, approached with a data tablet. "Intelligence reports confirm that the human withdrawal continues to be absolute. No human vessels have been detected in Confederation space for over 5 months." As expected, Vrex nodded. For all their foolishness, the Confederation at least understood one truth. Humans were the only species we truly feared. Without them, this is not war, it is harvest. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Lisa Ortega stood in the Strategic Command Center, watching the holographic display of the ongoing Krell invasion. Dozens of worlds glowed red, marking them as conquered. Others blinked yellow, showing they were under active attack. "The Krell have taken the entire Proxima sector," reported Lieutenant Carlos Mendez, updating the display. "They're moving toward the Arcturus systems now." Ortega studied the tactical projections with a practiced eye. The Confederation's defensive line has already collapsed. At this rate, the Krell will reach the core worlds within 2 months. "Shouldn't we help?" Mendez asked, his young face troubled. "Those are innocent worlds, civilian populations being enslaved or worse." Admiral Ortega turned to face her lieutenant, her expression hard but not unkind. "Those are worlds that dismissed us as violent primitives while happily putting us between them and danger. Let them see what that danger truly looks like without us." "With respect, Admiral," Mendez persisted, "our oath is to protect. Our oath is to Earth and her colonies," Ortega interrupted. "For 200 years we fulfilled that oath by fighting the Confederation's battles while they looked down on us. No more." She gestured to the display. "Besides, this is a valuable lesson for them. They're learning what we've always known. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and strength is the only currency that truly matters." Thousands of light years away, on the colony world of New Titan, former human settlers watched as refugees flooded in from conquered Confederation territories. Although New Titan had been established by humans, it sat just outside official Confederation space, making it one of the few safe havens in the region. Governor Alan Miller stood at the spaceport, watching as another transport unloaded its desperate passengers. Families of various species clutched what few possessions they had managed to bring, their faces marked by trauma and fear. "That's the 5th transport today," said his assistant, checking her tablet. "We're running out of temporary housing," Miller nodded grimly. "Convert the old storage facilities near the Eastern District. It won't be comfortable, but it's better than nothing." A Confederation military officer approached, his uniform dusty and torn. "Governor Miller, I'm Commander Zeth of the 7th Fleet, or what's left of it." He glanced back at the refugees. "We're grateful for the humanitarian aid, but we need more." "More food? Medical supplies?" Miller asked. "Military assistance," Zeth said bluntly. "We know Earth has been building up its forces since the withdrawal. You have ships, weapons, soldiers. We need them." Miller's expression didn't change. "I can offer sanctuary to civilians, food, medicine, shelter. But military aid, that would require approval from Earth itself." "Then contact Earth," Zeth urged. "Surely humans won't stand by while the Krell slaughter their way across the galaxy. The same way the Confederation didn't stand by when the Krell attacked human colonies on the Rim 20 years ago." Miller's voice remained calm, but his eyes hardened. "I seem to recall your council voting against intervention because those colonies were too remote to justify the expense." Zeth looked away. "That was a different time, different leadership. And yet the decision was the same one your people always made when humans needed help," Miller replied. "I'll forward your request to Earth, but don't expect much. We've learned from your example." "Oh no." Confederation Central, now under constant alert as Krell forces advanced ever closer, Chancellor Genta paced in her private chambers. The latest reports from the front lines were catastrophic. The Medusan fleet, once considered the most elegant ships in the galaxy, had been decimated in the Battle of Vega. The Taurian Home Defense Force had surrendered without firing a shot. "We need the humans," she said to her aide. "Without them, the Confederation will fall." "The Council would never agree to the terms they would demand," the aide replied. "The Council has no choice," Genta snapped. "Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford." Making her decision, Genta bypassed the proper diplomatic channels. Using codes that hadn't been accessed in decades, she sent a direct message to Earth, requesting an immediate audience with President Mason. 3 days later, Chancellor Genta's personal shuttle landed at the New Washington spaceport. It was the first time in over a century that a sitting chancellor had left Confederation space during a crisis. The meeting took place in the presidential office, a simple but elegant room that reflected humanity's preference for functionality over ostentation. President Mason greeted the chancellor formally but offered no special courtesies. "Chancellor," Mason said, "your message indicated this was urgent." "The Krell have taken 34 systems," Genta began without preamble. "Their advance shows no sign of slowing. Conservative estimates suggest they will reach Confederation Central within 40 days. Mason nodded. "Our intelligence suggests the same timeline." "Then you know why I've come," Genta said. "We need humanity's help. The Confederation will reform. We offer full technological autonomy, leadership positions, whatever you ask." For a long moment, President Mason was silent, studying the alien leader. When she finally spoke, her voice was measured. "We didn't leave to extort better terms, Chancellor. We left because we realized we don't belong in your vision of civilization. You see us as useful barbarians, good for fighting your wars, but not for sitting at your table as equals." "That can change," Genta insisted. "Already is changing. The withdrawal has opened many eyes." "Fear is a powerful teacher," Mason agreed, "but its lessons rarely last once the danger passes." She stood, signaling the end of the meeting. "Perhaps, when the dust settles, we can discuss peaceful coexistence as equals, not as members. Until then, Earth will look to its own." As Chancellor Genta departed, she looked back at the gleaming towers of New Washington. For the first time, she truly understood what the Confederation had lost. Not just soldiers or doctors or engineers, but an entire perspective, a vital balance to the Confederation's ancient complacency. And as her shuttle rose into the blue Earth sky, she wondered if that understanding had come too late. As the Krell invasion reached the core systems of the Confederation, something unexpected began to happen. The remaining Confederation forces started to adapt. After initial catastrophic losses, they were slowly learning to fight more effectively against their relentless enemy. General Paula White, one of Earth's most decorated military strategists, stood before a class of cadets at the Earth Military Academy. On the large screen behind her, tactical feeds showed the latest battles between Confederation and Krell forces. "Watch carefully," she told her students, pointing to the movement of ships. "The Taurians are using flanking maneuvers now. 6 months ago, they would have formed a standard defensive wall and been slaughtered." A young cadet raised her hand. "They're copying our tactics from the Battle of Proxima, aren't they?" "Exactly," White nodded. "They're learning. It took losing half their territory to do it, but they're finally adapting." Another feed showed a different battle. A small group of Medusan ships flew directly into a Krell formation, detonating their engines in a massive explosion that destroyed both themselves and the enemy vessels. "Suicide runs," White noted. "The Medusans once called such tactics human barbarism. Now they form special squadrons specifically for these missions." After class, White met with her colleague, Colonel Greg Martinez, in her office. "It's almost impressive," Martinez said, reviewing the battle data. "The Velox are developing new shield technology based on principles they rejected when our scientists proposed them decades ago." White leaned back in her chair. "Necessity is a powerful motivator. For centuries, the Confederation species relied on their ancient technologies and traditions. They never needed to innovate because they faced no real threats. And when they did face threats, we handled them," Martinez added. "Which only reinforced their complacency," White concluded. "Now, with their backs against the wall and no humans to save them, they're finally pushing their own boundaries." Across the galaxy, on the academic world of Arcturus IV, Dr. Keith Harrison walked through the Grand Library of the Confederation University. As one of the few human xenobiologists who had chosen to remain in Confederation space, Harrison had a unique perspective on the changes taking place. The university had once been filled with thousands of students from hundreds of species. Now, with the war raging, only a few dozen remained, mostly scholars too old or too dedicated to flee. Harrison stopped before a new installation in the main hall, a life-sized statue of Neil Armstrong, the first human to walk on Earth's moon. The plaque beneath it read, "In recognition of humanity's pioneering spirit and courage." "Ironic, isn't it?" said a voice behind him. Professor Vex, a Trelaxian historian, joined Harrison at the statue. "This hall once celebrated only achievements from the founding species of the Confederation. No human had ever been honored here. And now," Harrison gestured to the statue, "now there are 17 human exhibits in this building alone." Vex replied, "The Council of Education has ordered a complete revision of historical texts to include human contributions that were previously minimized." Harrison smiled thinly. "You mean the contributions that were deliberately erased because they made other species uncomfortable about how quickly humans were advancing?" The old professor didn't deny it. "Fear makes fools of even the wisest beings. We feared what we did not understand, and now we pay the price of that fear." He looked up at Armstrong's face. "Do you know what the most requested materials are in the library now? Human history, human military strategies, human scientific journals, learning from those they once dismissed," Harrison noted. "Yes," Vex agreed. "But will the lesson last if they survive this war? That is the real question." Back on Earth, President Mason called a special meeting with her top advisors. Foreign Secretary Wright began with the latest updates. "The Krell have taken 3 more systems in the past week," he reported. "But their advance has slowed considerably. Confederation forces are fighting more effectively now." "Not effectively enough to win," noted Defense Minister Howard. "Our projections still show total Confederation collapse within 4 months. Chief Diplomat Victoria Russell cleared her throat. "Madam President, I have a proposal to consider." She brought up a holographic map showing several star systems near Earth's space. "The Krell will reach these sectors next. Among them are New Eden, Harmony, and Centauri Prime. Our former protectorates," Mason said quietly. Russell nodded. "Worlds we helped develop before joining the Confederation. Colonies that chose independence rather than joining us or the Confederation, and treated us as equals rather than primitives," added Admiral Porter, who had joined the meeting via secure link from the Fleet Command. Do we abandon them too? Russell asked, getting to the heart of the matter. The room fell silent. These weren't Confederation worlds that had looked down on humanity. These were neutral planets, many with significant human populations, that had maintained friendly relations with Earth throughout the centuries. This isn't about revenge anymore, Russell continued. It's about who we want to be. The species that walks away when innocents are in danger, or the species that stands up for those who respected us. President Mason rose and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. For the first time since the withdrawal, she was faced with a choice not driven by righteous resentment, but by humanity's core values. Admiral Porter, she said finally, how quickly can the home fleet be made ready for deployment? Porter's hologram smiled. The 3rd and 5th Divisions can deploy within 48 hours. The rest would need a week to fully mobilize. Begin preparations, Mason ordered. But keep it quiet. I don't want the Confederation to think this means we're coming back to save them. As the meeting concluded, Mason held back Chief Diplomat Russell. Victoria, she said once they were alone, draft a declaration establishing a new alliance. Call it the Human Protective Alliance. Membership will be open to any world willing to accept Earth as an equal partner, not a subordinate. Including former Confederation worlds? Russell asked. If they accept our terms, Mason replied, but our priority is protecting those who always treated us with respect. Meanwhile, on the embattled colony of Centauri Prime, the situation grew desperate. Once a thriving world with a mixed population of humans and various alien species, it now faced the full might of a Krell battle fleet. The colony's defenses, though more substantial than most independent worlds, couldn't hope to withstand such an assault for long. Governor Sam Chen watched from the defense center as the orbital shields flickered under repeated bombardment. Shield capacity at 32%, reported his security chief. At this rate, we have 3 hours before total failure. Evacuation status? Chen asked, his voice steady despite the crisis. 60% of civilians are in the underground shelters. The rest are still being moved. Chen nodded. Continue evacuation. All non-essential personnel. He was interrupted by a communications officer. Governor, multiple ships just dropped. Out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of our system. Chen's heart sank. If these were Krell reinforcements, Centauri Prime was doomed. Identification? He asked, bracing for the worst. The officer looked up, his eyes wide with disbelief and sudden hope. Sir, they're human vessels, Earth ships, an entire fleet. As the people of Centauri Prime watched in awe, the sleek, powerful ships of Earth's fleet moved into defensive positions around their world. Against the darkness of space, they saw humanity's return, not as reluctant Confederation soldiers, but as defenders who had chosen to stand with those who had always stood with them. The battle for Centauri Prime lasted less than 3 hours. The Krell fleet, unprepared for the sudden appearance of Earth's ships, broke apart under the onslaught of weapons they had not seen before. As the last enemy vessel retreated, cheers erupted across the colony. Admiral William Porter stood on the bridge of his flagship, the UES Defiance, watching as smaller craft began landing on the planet to provide aid. Open a channel to all frequencies, he ordered. His communications officer nodded, and Porter spoke clearly into the transmitter. This is Earth Fleet. We're here for Centauri Prime and its people, not for the Confederation. The message spread quickly across the galaxy. Humanity had returned to the fight, but only to protect specific worlds. When Confederation officials sent urgent requests for similar help, they received the same response. The Human Protective Alliance offers membership to independent worlds and former colonies. Confederation worlds must apply directly if they wish to join. 1 week later, President Mason addressed the newly formed alliance from New Washington. Representatives from 7 worlds, including Centauri Prime, attended in person. Dozens more joined via holographic links. The Human Protective Alliance stands for mutual respect and genuine partnership, Mason declared. Each member world maintains its sovereignty while contributing to our collective security. We do not dictate to our allies. We collaborate with them. The contrast with the Confederation's structure couldn't have been clearer. Within days, applications flooded in from independent worlds across the galaxy. More surprisingly, several Confederation worlds formally requested to leave the Confederation and join the Alliance instead. On Confederation Central, now under threat of direct Krell attack, Chancellor Genta faced an emergency council session. Half the seats stood empty, representatives from worlds either conquered by the Krell or seeking to join the human alliance. "We must adapt or perish," she told the remaining council members. "The Confederation has stood for 10,000 years, but we have grown rigid in our traditions. Humanity showed us a different way and we rejected it." A Taurian representative rose in protest. "You suggest we beg the humans for help, after they abandoned us to the Krell?" "I suggest we acknowledge our mistakes," Genta replied firmly. "Humanity didn't abandon us, we drove them away through centuries of condescension and manipulation." After heated debate, the council narrowly approved Genta's proposal. The Chancellor would meet with President Mason one more time, not to request military aid, but to propose a new relationship between the Confederation and the Human Alliance. The meeting took place on neutral ground, the lunar colony of Armstrong City, named for the first human to walk on Earth's moon. The symbolism was lost on no one. "You could save the galaxy," Genta said after formal greetings were exchanged. "The galaxy never wanted our help," Mason responded. "It wanted our service without our voice. Those days are over." For hours, they discussed terms. Finally, Mason offered a limited defense pact. Earth would help contain the Krell, but only if the Confederation acknowledged human sovereignty and ended all restrictions on human development. "And one more condition," Mason added. "The Confederation must formally apologize for the systematic suppression of human innovation and the deliberate marginalization of human contributions to galactic civilization." Genta hesitated only briefly, before agreeing. Pride was a luxury the Confederation could no longer afford. 2 days later, the signing ceremony of the Lunar Accords took place. For the first time in galactic history, the Confederation signed an agreement as equals with another power, not as the dominant party. The document began with words that would have been unthinkable a year earlier. Recognizing the equal standing of all sentient species. Commander Ryan Patel, who had overseen the evacuation of Proxima Station at the beginning of humanity's withdrawal, watched from the sidelines. Beside him stood Dr. Susan Rivera, the observer who had witnessed the Confederation's initial dismissal of humanity's departure. "Do you think they've learned their lesson?" Patel asked quietly. Rivera watched as alien diplomats treated their human counterparts with new deference and respect. "They're beginning to. Nothing teaches value quite like absence." Above them, in orbital dry docks, humanity's new fleet stood ready. These ships, developed during their isolation, represented purely human ingenuity unleashed. As reports came in of Krell forces regrouping for another offensive, the galaxy held its breath, hoping humanity's return to the galactic stage had come in time. The message echoed across the stars. Humans didn't need the galaxy needed humans.